Welcome back to Advertising is Dead. We're talking to Arjun. Arjun, we're finally doing this. You and I have spoken about doing this for for a long time.
No, I'm excited. Excited for the conversation.
Yeah, because I think a lot of the stuff, like insights I've gotten from you in our offline conversations, I have thought it's value for listeners to kind of get in from you while we record this. I want to first start off by asking you, saying, was D2C as a category something you gravitated towards naturally, or was it because by virtue of what you were building? I think that's what I want to kind of start with.
No, yeah, I think all of the things in a startup happen because something goes wrong, right? And for us, so I think we started Dr. Vaidya's in October 2000. No, I started Dr. Vaidya's actually. Trisha joined on later. The thesis behind the brand was my family legacy and taking it forward and making it appeal to you, right? Making it appeal to new age consumers.
Yeah.
So pretty much quit my job, October 2016, did a big launch event at Taj Lands End Hotel. Was launching 2 products, a hangover product called Live It Up and a Chyawanprash in capsule form called HerboFit.
Yeah.
And had a nice launch event, 300 people came, 6 distributors signed up and we did 10 lakhs of billing, I remember, in Jan 2017. So now I was a finance guy in private equity, so I'm modeling that Excel sheet, right? 10 lakhs, 20 lakhs, 50 lakhs, 1 crore, 5 crores. And then it became like $1 million a month business in 15 months according to that Excel sheet.
Yeah.
Now, what I didn't realize at that time was that when you do this billing to distributors, it's primary sale. The distributors have to bill to retailers who have to bill to end consumers. Only once the end consumers pay you or buy the product do you get paid, right? And considering it was Ayurveda, we were a small brand. I was 24 and a half years old. I didn't know what offline marketing was, building a brand distribution. And we had limited money against really stiff, large competition. Nobody bought our product, right? And so eventually we got 90% of this product back in March, April 2017. And then the reality was that I didn't have an answer to solving this problem. And so the good thing I did was I sat back and said, hey, where have I gone wrong? These are the problems. I'm too young. I don't know offline distribution. I don't have money and the competition is too stiff. Nobody knows my brand. In the short or medium term, I can't solve for these problems with my current resource structure. So I shut down offline. And then my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, she was in the founding team at Nykaa and she said, you've seen e-commerce at that time is what we called it, evolve in your journey as an investor. She was in the early team at Nykaa. She said, I saw it at Nykaa. Nobody's doing Ayurveda online, so why don't you do Ayurveda online? And I convinced her to join the business. And that's how we actually launched D2C. At that time, the term didn't exist. But that's actually why we gravitated to online, right? Because today, D2C, online brands, unicorns, 100 crore ARR, it's all like just spoken about like that. But 2016-17 was the first wave of brands, right? Mama, The Boat, Wow, Dr. Vaidya's, M Caffeine, like the early set of brands. And so actually when we started at that time, it was like, seemed like a pretty wild thing to do, right? Even the VCs today who know about D2C at that time were saying e-commerce only, website first brand. There's no chance, right? And we didn't say D2C that time. We said online only or digital first. Those are D2C was some term that we used to read in like VC reports from the West. So that's the journey to actually starting D2C. Now it seems like it's like part of life for all of us, my life, etc. But convincing a customer to buy on your website in 2017 was like the hardest thing ever, right? Hardest.
And I think that's the most interesting part, right? If you think about it, distribution was that core, like the whole supply chain distribution piece of like really how will my consumer find me was one of the core things that this entire wave kind of solved for. But I find it interesting when you say that was the toughest part as well, to make them actually come and purchase on your site. So look at the early years. What were things that you assumed that this is how consumers will kind of buy online versus what was the reality that you discovered and kind of had to kind of evolve?
Yeah, so look, I think if you think about 2017, right, and you think about your behavior as well, you did not go to you got ads on your Insta feed, but and I don't even think we used so much of Insta back then, right? Very little. So you got ads on your Facebook feed mostly.
Facebook,
And then you clicked on it, but you didn't really buy from those brands, right? And so that behavior of assuming the customer will buy, we knew it was an uphill challenge. Right? We knew it was tough. And so we knew we had a big job to do to build trust and credibility amongst these customers, right? So we called the brand Dr. Vaidya's. Vaidya's means Ayurvedic doctor. Lucky to get that trademark. 150 years of legacy was something you talked about a lot. The customer service people used to pick up the phone and say, calling from Dr. Vaidya's 150 years of legacy, naam to suna hoga. So like assuming that you've heard about this, and everybody had heard the word Vaidya. So they thought that this is that same Vaidya calling them, and everybody assumed that it's the same one. The other thing I assumed was that e-commerce purchasing and Dr. Vaidya's would be an urban tier 1 brand, right? So that assumption was totally incorrect, because what was the problem we were solving? We were giving high quality Ayurvedic products and care with a free consultation at the touch of consumers' fingertips. In Bombay, Delhi, Bangalore, Hyderabad, Chennai, Calcutta, you may actually have an Ayurvedic doctor available to you in a 2-kilometer radius, 3-kilometer radius, etc. Right? So it's not such a meaningfully sort of novel problem we're solving for you, right? And online buying wasn't so common. So where did the first set of customers come? And we got to know that from customer calls, because we used to pretty much pick up all the customer calls, right? Customer service phone was an Android phone that would be with me on weekends and stuff. 82% of the customers came from outside the top 10 cities. Now, the insight there was, hey, actually here, they probably have to travel 15 kilometers, so don't even have an Ayurvedic doctor anywhere near them, right? And so those were the customers we were catering to, and that made the brand ethos, imagery, language of advertising all switch. So Dr. Vaidya's moved from an urban elite, hangover, Chyawanprash and capsule brand to Dr. Vaidya's new age Ayurveda for the Bharat consumer, all ads in Hindi and English. Almost no ads in English, right? So I think behavior-wise, you'd think e-commerce brand at that time would be an urban brand. The reality was actually it was a Bharat-focused brand. So that was a big assumption. And that made us as founders also evolve, right? Because you're then saying, hey, by the way, I'm not building for myself. And as a D2C founder, you always say, I like this product, I don't like this product, I like the way this is, I consumed it. But you have to disconnect yourself from your own personal experiences and actually put yourself in the customer's shoes. And I think that's the best. One thing we did right was we didn't assume things about the customer. And we actually said, let the customer decide.
You know, it's interesting you say that, right? Removing yourself from, because that's so easy to do.
It's easy to say.
Easy to say, and also say, okay, I like this product, so let's do it this way. Or like, I've consumed this kind of a piece, and you might not realize that you might be like a super niche category across all of it.
So I'll give you one example of this, Varun. When TikTok sort of started trending in India, for me the thesis was very clear that that's where my customer is, right? So I need to be on TikTok. And so I reached out to the TikTok team, and like I'd heard from some agencies that TikTok is coming to India. They said, we'll connect you, it'll take some time, this, that, whatever. So I just wrote to everybody on LinkedIn in TikTok in India. And they replied and they were like happy to have you and stuff. We started spending 5,000 rupees a day on TikTok. Eventually we were top 10 spenders in India, spending like 5 lakhs a day on TikTok. I remember walking by my performance marketing team in the office, and I saw an ad with really jarring music and really tacky imagery, right? And I was like, guys, like, this is not me. And like, as much as we're catering to this customer, like, I cannot have this go out with my brand. And they were like, okay, the ad is running at 7x ROI. You decide, you want us to take it down, we'll take it down. And I was like, no, keep running the ad, right? That's the reality. Like, the data is telling you this is working. It may not be something that you relate to, but that's fine. That's totally okay.
And I feel that also kind of gave the entryway to so many people to kind of build D2C products, right? If you look at the market today, there's so many. I mean, like, I think most small and medium-sized businesses have also become semi-D2C, if not fully D2C.
So there was an amazing LinkedIn post that I saw Shantanu, founder of Bombay Shaving Company, post. He said, I think there are more D2C brands than customers. Sabko batting chahiye.
Which is true, right? There's so many of them right now. And if you're looking at the scenario right now, where obviously one of the core things that drove the market was performance marketing, which right now has gone through this entire shift of not being as accurate, not giving the kind of results, because there are too many people trying to get those keywords to market, but on the other end also, just like how that's changed, right, because of the data regulations and all that stuff. So if you're a D2C brand today, how do you grow? How do you kind of evolve? So I know you get asked that question a lot.
The world has changed, right? Reality is world has changed. So what's changed in the world? 2017-18, as founders, our job was to convince Varun to buy. If Varun bought, he'd buy from me because there was nobody else, right?
Correct,
so the ecosystem of customers was smaller. With that, the ecosystem of brands was smaller. So if you did well, you'd win that market, right? And that's how we did it. And so Dr. Vaidya's got by for the first 2 or 3 years with performance marketing. I think the time we started thinking of brand was 2019 after we raised money.
Yeah.
Today, that's absolutely unacceptable. So I think the two big changes that you have today, one is post-COVID, the addressable number of customers has increased 2x, 3x, 5x, 10x in some categories, right? But with that, the number of brands have also increased 5x, 10x, 20x.
If not more.
If not more. And so you have to be able to chart your way and find your differentiation to get the customer to buy you. The customer is buying online. That's clear. My dad is buying online. He's going on his Instagram feed, clicking on a link, buying, calling the customer care of those brands and ask them, why is the delivery taking so long? That behavior didn't exist pre-COVID. So that's a big change. But now my dad has 6 quinoa pastas to order. So who is he going to choose, right? And that's the problem you have to solve, which is why actually, given the name of your podcast, Advertising is Dead, my view is in D2C, performance marketing as the sole channel will be dead, right? And so the way we scaled from, let's say, 0 to 1,000 orders a day was on the back of performance marketing. That will not happen today. If you do that, given the cost of ads and the ROAS you're working at, your ROAS will be so low, it will become unsustainable. Which is why this black box called brand, content and community has now become really important. The problem is founders are like, what should I spend? How much should I spend?
Exactly, right.
Brand ambassador on day one. How many influencers? Video content, reels, yes, no, maybe. What are you saying? Community, is the community on WhatsApp or Discord on my website? Are emailers good or bad? What is retention, right? This black box is what will determine an average brand from a good brand or a bad brand from a good brand. The guy who solves for this. And the second thing is, it took me 1 year to learn D2C, right? So Shopify, WooCommerce, Facebook ads, Google ads, retention, warehousing, logistics, all of these things, right? COD, RTOs, how do I reduce it? It took me 1 year. You have 2 months at max to solve for this, because everybody else, or at least 10 brands in your space, know all of this already. And so you can't say, hey, I'm new to this space, explain to me what is SEO. That's not okay. It's non-negotiable to have your basics in place, right? And so performance marketing is not your answer, and competition is significant. And so even though the market is really big, and if you win, you can run away with a really large pie, much larger than I could have run away with when I started. There will also be many more casualties and brands that don't succeed anymore.
And I think the brand itself is such an important part now, right? Because it's so important to differentiate yourself now more than ever. And I think the word community is also very, very like misused, right?
That's why I said black box, right?
Everything is called community, right? I mean, it can be a Facebook group, it could be a couple of WhatsApp groups there. I mean, at some point I'm like, what is community? Is it just your Instagram account? But more than anything else, because now we've also moved from a founder lens to an investor lens. What do you see, apart from this black box understanding, what do you look for in people who are building companies in this space today and beyond? What do you see that, if you're a founder, what are the core things you need to know, apart from obviously what you just said, saying you need to know how this works in a shorter span of time?
So I would say, if I take off the founder lens and put on the investor lens now, right? What are the sort of 3 things I'd look at, 3 buckets, and then I'll deep dive. Founder, early stage, you're betting on a person, right? So who is that person? Why are they driven? Will they fight in the toughest times with grit and resilience or walk away? And then are they the right people for that problem, right? So Arjun Vaidya may be a smart guy who looks like a good profile, but he's not the right person to solve problems in space. Or not the right person to make drones, right? Totally not the right person. But I may have been the right person or the most credible person to solve a problem in Ayurveda, given my family, legacy, history, my background, etc. I seem like the right person. So 50% for me is founder. 20% is addressable market. And that comes back to what we were talking about earlier, which is, don't just invest for yourself, right? I'm sugar-free and gluten-free, you know that. Don't necessarily go and invest in sugar-free, gluten-free brands, because the addressable market of that is 100,000 people like me in India maybe, right? So large enough addressable market for that company to be able to capture a large share and grow big. And then the last one is business metrics, right? That's the standard one. So the standard ones would be revenue, growth of revenue, gross margin. But the not so standard ones here would be engagement of, like we talk about community, engagement of community. So I have 290k followers on Instagram, but my reels get 5,000 views. Obviously, that's not an engaged community.
Yeah.
Maybe bought or maybe totally not engaged, forgot about you, etc. And then repeats, right? So if you think about D2C unit economics, you'll have MRP or sort of MRP minus discount is the price the customer pays for the product.
Correct.
On that, you'll have a gross margin.
Yeah.
So your cost of goods will be minus, you'll get a gross margin.
Yeah.
Below that, you have largely 3 costs. Logistics, packaging, that means outer packaging for your courier bags, your boxes, etc. All of that. Those are not levers you can pull. And then there's a customer acquisition cost. That's a marketing cost, right? That's the lever.
Yeah.
And pretty much that's what determines success, failure of businesses, etc. All of that. Now, on the first order, your customer acquisition cost may be high, right? But I always give the example of Lenskart. So I bought my wife's lenses on Lenskart 23 or 24 months ago now, right? Since then, my account, I have spent about 85,000 rupees on Lenskart. Whether Lenskart spent 500, 5,000 or 10,000 rupees to acquire me, they earn the money.
Yeah.
And so, real secret sauce of D2C for me is retention, because you have names, addresses, email addresses, mobile numbers and products bought.
Yeah.
If you think about the offline channel, it takes a long time for you to get this data because there's lots of layers in
So
between.
like accuracy becomes really suspect.
Because it's multiple layers in between, right?
Yeah.
And so leveraging this correctly to get a repeat friendly business. What's the great part about repeats? Actually, that entire CAC is either completely removed or 1/5, 1/10, right?
Yeah.
The sort of email cost or the push notification cost or a call cost, right? That will determine the success or failure of D2C businesses. So I would say business economics, gross margin, EBITDA, all of those standard ones.
Yeah.
For me, the key would be engagement of community brand love and LTV or repeat rate for the business. That would determine the success. And especially in the funding winter or the phase of market that we are in, right?
No, you mentioned CAC, right, which is a customer acquisition cost for those who don't know. And that's one of the core things I've actually been hearing in the market. I think you and I have had discussions on that as well. Is that fact that because people relied so much on performance, at some point that became so high and you didn't really know if there'd be repeat customers. You get that first customer saying, eventually I'll make that out of them. And the only way to retain them, like you said, is going to be that community aspect, going to be that, do I really love the product? I mean, it comes down to the product at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I think that's the...
So I'll tell you one, product is a non-negotiable step, right? So someone tells me you're talking about all these things, but what about product?
Yeah.
I'm saying I don't even bring up product, because if your product is actually
if
not
it's
so
bad.
good or bad, the customer is never going to come back. And so the conversation about all of the rest of the things becomes irrelevant, right? So on my podcast, Rohan Mirchandani from Epicame said an amazing thing. He said, the moment of truth is not when you sample the product, it's when the customer takes out rupees from their wallet and pays for your product. But then he corrected himself. He said, Arjun, you're a good salesman, you'll sell it once. The moment of truth is when the customer takes out rupees from their wallet and buys it a second time. Right? And so having a good product is like the starting point, right? If it's not a good product, you're in trouble. But I would say what I have been seeing now, since I am now in my life a 100% online consumer.
Yeah.
Like doing up our new house, went to IKEA. I remember my first trip to IKEA was 2012, doing up my college apartment in the US. We went to an IKEA and it was like life-changing experience for me. I was like, what a store, what an experience. Bought so much stuff. I went to IKEA 2 weekends ago and I was like checking my phone, checking stuff prices on the phone. So I don't buy things offline at all. Right? That may be just me. But now, if you think about it, where does the online brand have that moment of truth then? It's the product arriving, the time it took to arrive, the experience for which it was arriving, and then eventually the unboxing experience. That is your retail store experience, right? The unboxing. So I bought a pair of chappals from this brand called Chups. It's like a Haviana type rubber chappal, great colors. And I said, rather than replacing my Havianas with Havianas, let me buy an Indian brand. And it came in a beautiful, I spent 600 rupees on chappals. 500 rupees on chappals. Beautiful tin box.
Oh, nice.
Open the tin box. It's a beautiful story experience. I told 20 people about Chops. And I'm saying it on this podcast, right? So they get free marketing, which they should pay me for. But that unboxing experience, that basically, like as a marketer, that dopamine secretion in your brain when you are consuming the brand, that's the moment of truth today.
Like we've had Shashank from Whole Truth on the podcast before, right? Every time I order from Whole Truth,
You feel good.
What you get is something like, there's going to be something there. There'll be a small
You're
note
looking
with
for
something
it.
in
You're
it
looking
there.
for it.
They'll send you a note saying you've done this many purchases. We send you something else just like that. So that customer delight piece.
My wife got just 1 bar of Whole Truth randomly with a note saying thanks for being a loyal customer.
Same here. I got that one as well.
Yeah, just 1 bar.
Yeah, but think about it. If you do that with just your first set of customers, I even think back on a brand like Epigami. I remember they launched their coconut yogurt very early on in the pandemic, and I think the pandemic, that period 2020, late 2020 was when you were just buying whatever you could get, and I'm like, what is this? Let's buy it. The first batch wasn't great. I remember DMing them saying, guys, it wasn't that great, and they said, okay, we're going to send you the second batch. So everybody whoever sent that message got a second batch, and then I still use that product because I'm like, the fact that you actually took that feedback well and sent me a yogurt.
But how cool is that, right?
Yeah.
In the offline channel, think about Insta DMing a brand, will you get a reply? Here, you Insta DM a brand, you get a reply, they get what you're saying. That's the power.
Yeah.
And you thought of Insta DMing the brand, right?
Yeah.
That's a whole new world. What was our interaction with brands in the 90s? Nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing. A TV ad, some brand ambassador coming to your area and you having some sort of visibility there. That was the interaction we had with brands.
I want to ask you a question. When you took the decision of moving from founder to investor, did you have to rewire something in your head?
No, nothing at all. I'll
No?
tell you why. I don't think I'm an investor. I'm still a founder in my mind, right? So, like sometimes founders tell me, hey, you're smiling so much on a call, investors don't smile so much. I said, so what? Like, I'm having a conversation with you. I should start with a smile, right? I think it's not really rewired for me. I think it went from being a founder who was running one brand to now trying to be an enabler, right? Helping hundreds, if not thousands of brands, whether it's my investments, my podcast, the D2C course I teach, all of these things, right? My idea is now what knowledge I have. I had an exit. It was early on in my life. I have experience that I have to give back. And so actually I've not rewired much. The only thing I've rewired in my life is that I will not miss my morning workout.
No.
Come what may. As a founder, I
missed that many times.
Yeah, there's like 10 things broken when you wake up in the morning. This time I won't. This I won't miss. So I'm going every day for a run or a workout.
Now, I have a bunch more things to ask you, but I know we need to go for a break. I've already been getting eyes from the side from my producer. So we're going to take that break and be right back with advertising instead.
Previously on Varta Lab. After 3 wonderful seasons, Akash and Naveen went their separate ways in search for glory, comedy, and comedy glory. But all they found is long transit time, bureaucracy, and upset stomachs. Now, after 3 years of collecting stories and hustling,
I can't mention. Bullies. There's no need to overact. Bullies.
Akash and Naveen are back at the lab
Let's do it.
with
Stories, we've got stories. They're a little bit of funny and a little bit of dissembler. You wanna hear them? It's got humans. They're sitting in a box and talking bold at Varta.
Welcome back to Advertising is Dead. We're still talking to Arjun. I have to ask you a question because I feel it's an important one for most people to kind of learn, which is we've spoken about the product, we're talking about putting it there, but also there's the building of the team. When you had to kind of change around from the offline focus initially largely to fully online, and then kind of also had to have that team evolve. How was that process? I mean, because I think that's also I think the most core part of being an entrepreneur is to kind of build that team.
Biggest mistake we made is under index on team as founders, right? So look, young founders with very limited experience, not really got so much exposure to the working world or seen many businesses or brand scale, right? Pretty much for me, Dr. Vaidya was my first time working on a business, right? Because prior to that, I was an investor working in private equity. Those teams are like 4 or 5 people. So really what do you do? And your exposure to the companies you invest in is like very superficial, right?
Yeah.
So we thought we could do everything on our own. And so we didn't sort of build a team, also bootstrapped. always scared of sort of burning money. And so we used to do everything on our own work, 14, 16 hours. But reality is compounding 16 into 2 is still 32. And by the way, you can't be more efficient after 12 hours of work, right? That's over your day. So 12 into 2 is 24. 8 into 10 is 80, right? That's simple math, right? And so I think the biggest mistake we made was under-index on team. The only time we had the comfort to invest in team was when we raised money. But I had done it all over again. When I do it eventually, or Trisha does it again, I think this is something we'll change.
Yeah.
Because you're good at certain things. Like bringing Trisha into the business was the best decision we made because complementary skill sets.
Yeah.
I'm not good at day-to-day ops. I'm not good at day-to-day finance. I'm a big picture guy.
Yeah.
That's fine. But you can't have only a big picture guy. The details will totally be missed. Right? And they were being missed.
Yeah.
And I saw that I was a 5 on 10 at everything I did. Because I was missing all the details. Right? And so I think team is one question which all founders are solving for right now. Like if I tell you what every founder asks me every time, it's like, can you find me good people? And so like I find good CVs and I'm like just like mass broadcasting it to 20 founders every day.
Yeah.
But I would say it's something which is a tough solve. But if you get it right, you can build a rocket ship.
Yeah.
And my learning on team was don't plug holes. If there is a gap in your team, don't just say chal jayega because it's bad for you and bad for that person.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize the importance of culture early on, right? What does that mean? It's not those like have those team dinner and drinks every week, take those Instagram posts saying love my workplace. That's not culture.
What do you call those things on the wall or beanbags in the office?
Beanbags in the office. That's not culture, right?
Yeah.
So doctors is the opposite of that.
Yeah.
It was hard work, ambition, hustle, simplicity of office, no frills. That was the culture. So someone who wanted the beanbags, not a right fit for our company, right?
Yeah.
But figuring out how that person would fit into the environment, the values, right? Was hard work, honesty, humility, 100%, team effort, customer centricity.
Yeah.
Like you have to see that in that person because else it's not like they are doing something wrong if they don't fit in.
Yeah.
That's the culture you've built. That's the org you've built. And so maybe everyone doesn't fit in. And that's okay. Cultural fits for us from a hiring perspective were much, much better in the long term than just skill fits. Skills you can figure out, you can learn along the way. But
Yeah.
cultural fits were critical.
How is it? And I say this because I've spent a lot. I work with my partner as well, which is Pooja. How does that work for both of you? You mentioned complementary skill sets, but that's also a decision most people turn around and say, but are you sure? Which I was asked, I remember when Pooja kind of came on to Glitch in the early days. How do you both make it work?
So look, I think when we started, actually, it wasn't so much precedent of so many startup husband-wife duos. Now you have
lots.
Tens, if not hundreds of successful startups with that, right? I think both our parents also work together.
Yeah.
But when we said we wanted to work together, both sets of family said, it's a disaster waiting to happen. You all are really young. You're planning a wedding. You just got engaged. You're planning a wedding and building a startup. It's like destined for failure. But we said, look, we'll make it work. It's our decision. You can't take that decision for us. And fine. Like our priority is not having a big fat Indian wedding. It's building this company. So that's life. There is no work-life balance. At least we could not find that work-life balance. You're at home at 1 a.m. watching a show on Netflix and you come up with an idea, you stop, pause and you discuss that idea, right? So if you believe there's work-life balance, then I'm going to burst that bubble and say that it's tough.
Yeah.
That's not easy. There were times when Trisha has told me, am I your wife or your colleague? But the journey of building something together, if both people are aligned with the size, the scale, the passion, etc., that's like the most beautiful journey, right? Like I remember, like, so we just moved into our new home and like we're doing a puja and then we're doing the first step into our new home. And at that point, both of us stopped, smiled, and it was like unsaid but said, right? That, hey, all those like all-nighters, those times when you were working at 5 a.m. on the tech in the back end, those 20 flights to Delhi to close that customer, all of that was worth it for this moment, right? And that is something really special.
Yeah. And I think that's an important point to think of, right? Especially in this case. And I feel oftentimes what people worry about is it going to overlap onto home and actually affect the relationship, or this work-life balance piece as well. Like, so for me, Pooja is a person who's very strict about how to compartmentalize this. So like on our way back home from work, we are not talking work at home, right? And I'm a person who takes work everywhere with me. So it took me some time to get used to it. But obviously, importance level, if it was important enough, both of us
You
would
have
do
to
it.
discuss it.
But I'm that person who will talk about anything which is not even important. Like, you can wait like 1 week, I'll talk about it tonight. I'm still that person. So that's what she put some control into. And I think the complementary skills part is super important. I'm very unstructured. She's super structured. I'm more on... It's actually quite interesting. I'm big picture thinking like where things are going, and she's like, no, let's look at what fundamentals are right now. So when you were saying those points, I was also in my head kind of thinking about a lot of similarities on that front. I want to kind of segue into this one part which I also want to talk to you about, which is basically when you kind of came into the market and how it was. Obviously, there's a consumer then and there's a consumer now. There are companies then and now. When you're looking ahead, what are you kind of seeing as trends from the D2C space, but I think across the space, especially considering we're in supposed winter of some sorts?
Yeah.
What do you see as trends looking ahead?
I love this question because I think it's lots of discussions going on around this, right? I'll talk about what I see.
Yeah.
One, aspiration is not in the top 10 cities in India. Aspiration is across India, right? So don't believe that the customer in Anantnag, Muzaffarnagar, Trichy, Imphal or Andamans doesn't have aspiration and cannot consume what you consider mass premium or premium products. It can be consumed and there are customers, right? I learned that from my experience. Second, you can't fool the customer. Digital has allowed information to be democratized.
Yeah.
And so you don't even try to fool this customer, right? And the third one I would say is the customer is demanding today. If the product doesn't reach in time, they will DM you. They'll message you on LinkedIn. If they're not getting the service, they will tell you they're not getting the service. And the other way as well. If the customer is happy, we have mentioned a brand called Whole Truth on this podcast because we are happy customers of that brand.
Yeah.
I mean, Whole Truth didn't pay us to talk about them
Exactly.
on this podcast,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So both ways. Customer is demanding. If you give a beautiful experience, the customer will talk about you. If you give a bad experience or a not so good experience, the customer is unforgiving, right? And I think this all didn't exist at that time. I don't think I would ever think about writing to a brand's Facebook page to solve a query in 2017. Today I DM the brands all the time. I had a bad experience at a restaurant. I Googled the founder's name and I DM'd her on Instagram and I said, this is the bad experience I've had. I had a guest from Singapore. It's a terrible experience. What are you doing?
Yeah.
I mean, I was embarrassed and I had to take the person to a different restaurant, and she replied.
Yeah.
That's very different from how
we would...
how life was.
Yeah. And if you are someone who's in the market working, and I think it's also kind of the situation the market finds itself in also has made people think about, okay, where do I want to work? Because before, everybody was kind of going for any startup they go for, and there was also like exorbitant salaries being thrown around and all that stuff. Today people also think, okay, what are the skill sets I need to kind of have to make sure that I survive all the ups and downs of the market as it kind of evolves. So what do you think people should kind of upskill themselves? What should they look at in terms of what skill sets do they need to be able to work in this environment as these trends kind of take up?
There's lots of information and upskilling information available online today, which wasn't there when I was building.
Yeah.
Upskill yourself.
Yeah.
Use your weekends well. I met a founder who is about 45 years old, building never worked in D2C before, and then just came into the space, and he said, I just saw an opportunity on Amazon for my products. And so for 2 months, I actually just like went through every video on YouTube about Amazon. Now I have in one category the number one product on Amazon, and I just learned it myself, right? And that's amazing.
Yeah.
So in the competitive market we are in, having the right level of technical knowledge is important, but it's democratized, available to you, right? You do a course, you go on YouTube, you find videos, you find content, you learn yourself.
Yeah.
I think that's number one. Number two, I think there's lots of impatience now. You want to get from A to B yesterday, right? But and I was like that. My grandma used to keep saying 5 years is what it takes to build a brand. 5 years. And then she told me at the end, 5 years may you sold the brand. I told you 5 years is what it takes to make a brand, right?
Yeah.
So I think brand building takes time, effort and energy, and you can't hack it. Lots of people come to me and say, what's the hack to get to 1,000 orders a day? Just tell me there's a hack.
Yeah.
If there was a hack, would
Yeah.
you be coming to me? I'd be some genie who'd be like paid millions of dollars to give you this
You would
hack,
own an
right?
island somewhere. Yeah.
Exactly. So there is no hack. Don't look for the hack. Don't be impatient. Spend time and be patient. And the last one I would say in this environment is like, it's competitive, right? But India is not the US
Yeah.
or Europe. We're not a developed market yet. So in this competition, there are still niches, right? Which have been untapped or not so deeply tapped.
Yeah.
Go and operate in those niches rather than doing the exact same thing that 100 people are doing. Right? Because you're doing that exact same thing, there will be price wars, there will be people who will spend more in a burst for 3 to 6 months and then go out of the market, but that will negatively affect your business.
So towards the end of every episode, I ask my guests a bunch of questions. These have evolved over time. Some have pretty much stayed the same. Beyond work, you mentioned your morning workouts, but beyond work, what do you spend a lot of time doing? What keeps you interested, excited? What is your favorite? I hate the word pastime. What's your favorite curiosity that you kind of keep jumping into?
Look, I'm a crazy sports fan. Cricket for me is sort of number one sport. Also, I'm a big football fan, but I'm a Man United fan and things have not been going so well. So I think last year was not so much football.
Yeah.
Love cricket. Absolutely love cricket. Spend a lot of time watching. I'm into fitness, so I run, I work out, all of those kind of things. I'm also, I can't read
Oh,
books.
okay.
It takes me really long to read books. But I'm a history buff, and I study politics in college, so I watch a lot of documentaries.
Okay.
I think that I enjoy,
Yeah.
and I enjoy writing.
Nice.
Yeah, so I write a lot on startups, on D2C, on LinkedIn, and people like that content.
Yeah.
So that's what I do outside of work. But I would say that even though the company is not part of my life, still 90% of my day is work.
So, what did you watch recently that you enjoyed?
So one cricket documentary, it's on Voot called Bando Mein Tha Dam, inspirational story of India winning in Australia.
Yeah.
Obviously that was like an iconic series and
Yeah.
stuff. Really, really enjoyed that one. I watched this Apple TV show called Tehran, which I just finished.
Yeah.
Really, really nice show.
It's really nice. Yeah.
And then I watched some documentaries on Tibet. I didn't know so much about Tibet, so I watched some documentaries on Tibet. But documentaries, I'm not going to go on about is boring stuff, right? But yeah, the best documentary, one of the best things I've watched this year is We Crashed.
Yeah.
Really cool show. Very well made. And in the show, I hated and loved him multiple times, right? And that's the best kind of
That's
character.
the best kind of show. Yeah.
It's a real character then,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. What can you put together in an instant?
Nothing. No food. No food at all.
It doesn't have to be food. This is an open-ended question. Can be anything in the world.
What can you put together in an instant? A conversation.
Fair enough. That's actually... We haven't had that one come up in a while, actually. I think very early on in the show.
I'm an easy person to talk to.
That I can attest to entirely. And the last question, which has become the most confusing one to kind of do, which always used to be why will Dash not die? But I want to kind of evolve that and saying, what do you think is going to be the most alive part of the D2C business going ahead?
I want to say the way brands communicate with customers. And I'm saying this because there's so much cool stuff happening on personalized videos, on founders talking directly to customers, on going into the customer's house. There are some startups building abandoned cart WhatsApp videos personalized with your name, right?
Wow.
Just imagine if you abandon your cart and the brand ambassador or the founder of that brand says, "Hi Varun, I saw you were on our website. I just want to tell you about the product you were looking at. This is the great part about the product. Here's a 5% discount coupon code for you with your name in it. Complete your purchase." As opposed to an SMS, push notification or random emailer.
Yeah.
Think about this, right? That I think,
Wow.
if we get there, which we will get to,
Yeah.
I mean, it's just an amazing.
That's almost like making someone awkward enough saying, oh my God, maybe I should
You
buy
have
it.
to
'cause
buy
they
it
have
now. like this celebrity is talking to me directly. But
बोला है तो खरीदना पड़ेगा type.
But from the time we started, right, for us to see things like this,
Yeah.
it just makes us feel good, right? That the ecosystem has come such a long way in 5 years.
Yeah. Thanks so much for doing this, Arjun. This has been fabulous, and I think in many ways gave so many takeaways for people to kind of take in. And thanks, Stan, for taking the time and coming on Advertising is Dead.
Thank you, Varun. It's been a pleasure, and I hope people enjoy this.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they will. Awesome.